So welcome to this video showing you some of the things that you might have in your kit if you were teaching a young child who's got very little or no vision at some early concepts and leading on to pre-Braille skills. So as I've said, I'm sure some of you already have many of these things in your kit already. But if you don't, I hope that this video will give you some ideas as well. So one of the first things that you need is actually on the table here, but it's not the best example. You need a box and or a tin, I would actually say the better word than a box. And if you can have one that's metal, that's even better. So one of the old-fashioned biscuit tins or sweetie tins. I know that they're in the shops now because it's coming up to Christmas, but they're plastic. If you can get a metal one, it's better, because one of the first concepts that you teach would be in and out. I'm sure many of you will know this as well, that it's actually much easier to teach the concept of taking things out first of all, rather than putting things in. So if you imagine that this is a metal tin, you would go along to probably your home visit, I would suggest. You would, I would have something that's going to make a nice noise. So if you've got some old keys, for example, in a metal tin, or in case today it's a spoon, I'm going to put a spoon in the box, and so I would start off by taking it out of the box, out of my bag with the lid on, and I would give it a rattle and go, oh, I wonder what this is, and then you would spark some interest there. And as I say, have quite a few spoons in it, and then we want the child to actually just take them out. And that's the easy part, and then getting them to put it in and drop it is much more difficult, but that's the thing that you work on next, and you would need quite a lot of support to do that initially. So that's our first concept. It really is in and out. Now I'm going to just keep this on the table for the moment, because one of the next things that you might go on to teach is big and little. So when I taught this concept, I used 6 items altogether, and I used them in different combinations. So I again had my big box with the lid. I had a little box, which I put on top there. I had a little spoon, which actually could be even smaller than that. I had a big spoon, and I had a big button. Now this one, as you can see from the picture here, it's actually just on its own. When I did this with the child, I actually sewed the button onto just a piece of fabric, just a piece of felt, and I also had a little button as well. So choose things that the child is familiar with, and if it had been a child who had perhaps liked car toys or something like that, I'd have a big car and a little car. So you choose the things that are familiar and the child is interested in. So you can play lots of different games with this. So you can put the big button in the little box, put the little button in the little box, put the little spoon, put the little button on the spoon, or on the big spoon, and so on. So that's just different ideas there. As I say, no, you might want to limit your things. Start off with a big and a little box and a big and a little spoon, and do things there, and can then introduce a third one. But those sorts of ideas will give you lots of chances and opportunities to play with these objects in a different way. So that is big and little. So I'll just move this out of the way. And the next task that I'm going to talk about is some sorting. So sorting is a very important pre-Braille skill, and just put that up here. So I just put some things here in a plate. Now, these little plastic snack bags here, I use a lot to keep my things in. You can see them there, behind there. Just keeps everything together. So I've got different types of pasta here, dried pasta in a bowl, and I've also got some sticks as well. So I wouldn't obviously do all of this at once. This would be the sort of higher level task. So I might start off with something very, very different. So I might start off with the macaroni and the sticks, and I would just put those in a bowl, and then I would have another 2 plastic sorting dishes, and I would say we're going to put the macaroni on the right and put all the sticks in the bowl on the left. And I'd have my bowl containing everything in the centre. So what I'm doing there is I'm actually introducing several concepts at once. And from now on, when I'm talking about the tasks that I'm doing, you will realise that when I am teaching lots of different things at the same time. Some of them are revision, reinforcement, but others, things that are new. So when I first start out, as I say, I have that bowl in the middle with my 2 things that I want the child to sort. Now, if they don't know left and right, again, that's something that they may not be completely sure of. I might have started off by putting 1 piece of macaroni in the bowl on the right and 1 stick in the bowl on the left, or whichever way round I'm going to do it. So that would give them a little clue, and they could copy and do the same. But that's how I would start. Then I would try and get my pasta a little bit more similar. So I might go for 2 types of pasta next time, once we can sort the sticks from the macaroni. So I might go for, I don't know, the fusilli, and I would call it fusilli, the spirally one. I might call it spirally one as well. And then I would also go for the macaroni as well. So we'd sort fusilli and we'd sort macaroni. We got fusilli and macaroni. And then we might change it around a little bit. We might sort the fusilli and the pasta tube. And then we might sort the pasta tube and sticks. And then we might actually graduate up to fusilli, pasta tube and sticks. So then we'd be sorting 3 things. So as I say, we are just expanding on the task ever so often as well, and making it just that little bit more difficult. So once you've got the pasta out of the way, again, we're wanting to refine it down, so we go from sorting big things to sorting smaller things. I have yet another bag. And so things are slightly more similar. We've got little glass pebbles here and 1p coins. So sort the coins and the pebbles. And these are all things that the child is hopefully going to be familiar with as well. So that's another sorting activity. You might have different things to sort, but you get the idea that what you're trying to do is refine the skill down and down and down until things that they're sorting are very similar. So the next thing that I'm going to look at is shapes. Now, unfortunately, I only have 1 shape that I actually used in the last set of teaching that I did. So you have to choose your shapes very carefully. So I've got a triangle. Now I've actually only got that really to show you size. I'm just going to put a piece of fusilli pasta beside it just to give you an idea of scale. So it's the shape is really about the height of the fusilli pasta. So it's easily going to fit in a small child's hand. So when you are using these shapes, you want the shape to fit into the child's hand. You're going to start off when you're teaching shape, you're going to use the real shape, but you want the child to be able to actually hold it in their hand and grip it. So they're getting the idea of, well, this is a triangle. You want them to feel, be able to make a fist around it and feel those points going into their hand. And then when they've got, I always start off by teaching a circle first. Don't know why, but I do. And I can have a bit of fun with a circle more than a square and a triangle, but anyway. So anyway, we start off with the circle. I want to be able to hold that circle in their hand, so it'd be around about the same size as the triangle here, this plastic triangle, and so they can hold it in their hands and feel what a circle actually feels like. So I don't have a circle, but I've got a button. So here is my button. So my button was about the size of the real circle that I used, but I wouldn't use a button, although it's a circular button, because it's a button and we don't want to, although the shape is a circle, we don't want to confuse the child in terms of concept. So how we teach what a circle actually is, and when I can get this in shot, I will show you. So the child is holding the button in the middle, and then we take their other hand and they're using their finger, and we're going to move their finger around the edge of the shape. And as it's doing it, we're going to move it round. I'm going to help them move it round. So this is really a hand over hand activity. And we're using this edge so that they can get the idea that it goes on and on forever. So I used to sing a little song, just go round and round and round and round, round and round and round and round. I tried to encourage them to keep their finger on it, on the edge, not to move up and down as I was doing there. And so they get the idea that the button goes round and round and your finger stays on. So we use the edge as well, because that's a skill they're going to use later on for identifying coins. You know that some of our coins, 5 pences and 10 pences, have a milled edge, and 2 pence, 1 pence have got a smooth edge like this button. So this is a skill that they're going to use later on, so we teach it now. So they get the idea that it's a circle and it goes round and round, and I encourage them to sing the song along with me as well. So we always start with the real object that they can hold in their hand, make a fist around it, and they can feel it. And then we might do some sorting. So I might have circles in a dish, and I might have some other shapes, and I just want them to sort the circles from everything else. So if it's a circle, it goes in a dish, and if it's not a circle, then it might go in a box. Oh no, we don't want them, they're going in the bin. So as I've said, all of the activities that I'm going to show you today are not exciting activities, but you need to make them exciting in some way. Inject a bit of humour, make a story around them, or whatever. So we have our little round and round song. We had a great one for a square. Unfortunately, I don't have a square with me at the moment, but I'm just going to demonstrate on the triangle. So when it came to identifying the difference between circles and squares, there we go. So imagine this was the top of my square. So we'd go along, 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 along. Oops, falling off the edge. Oh no, let's turn it round. Finger back on, along, 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 along. Oops, falling off the edge. And that was the way I taught a square. The triangle was a little bit like it, but what I was more concerned about that was getting the child to hold it in their hand. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to shake the camera there. And feeling the 3 points of the square. So, 3 points of the triangle. Dear me, failed shape 101. So that would be how I would teach the triangle. But we certainly do the circle and the square first, and we're showing that the difference between the corners there, and obviously the circle doesn't have a corner. So real shapes always first of all. Then the next thing we would move on to is a shape on a card. So you can see now on the table, I'm just putting out a variety of cards. Get them into shot there. So I've got a variety of cards here on the table, and you will see that actually they're all different textures. So by now I may have also taught textures as well. I would use that through a book rather than through these cards, and I'll show you the book in a little in another video actually. So I've got cards here with circles and squares, different textures. I've got foam, I've got some felt, I've got some corrugated card. We do always teach the correct name. So I might use these initially just as, oh, what shape do I have on my card? And I would give the child the card and they would feel the shape and tell me what shape it was. And then I could make other games from this as well. So same and different. These are really good cards for doing something like that. And we can do it either by texture or we can do it by shape. Or we can do both. If I've got double cards of each one, and is it a snap or is it not snap? And you have to introduce that concept first of all by giving two cards and saying, oh, is it the same? Is it snap? And if it is, we will go, yay, snap, and make a big cheer and have a lot of fun with that. So it's a good way of doing same and different as well. With those. But you can see that when we've got these cards, what we're doing is you can no longer hold the shape in your whole hand. You have to really feel the shape itself and the edge of it as well to determine what shape it is, because it's now been stuck onto card. So we go from the real shape to the shape stuck onto card. If you've got small real plastic shapes like I did, if you can glue them on, if you're not worried about getting them off again, that would also be a good intermediary step if they're not ready to go to something like that. But you want something that's going to, this foam shape here sits quite raised from the card that it's backed onto. So that's the sort of next step in teaching of shape. And then we get to the final one here. So these shapes have been made by using a Zychem heater. So, and I've got my circles and squares. Oh, sorry, I keep bumping that. Move these. Yeah. So, first of all, we're going to show them the filled in shape. So, just done by computer, filled it in black, copied onto the heat sensitive paper, and then put through the heat machine, heat copier, and anything that's black is raised. So it's completely, feels quite spongy almost, and it's sitting quite proud of the paper, so it's raised up quite a bit. So that's the next stage. And I've got a circle here, and it's got a strong outline. And in the middle, I've got straight lines, which were black, and it's probably coming out looking quite strange, I'm sure. Difficult to look at when you're watching it on the screen. But you can feel the lines, it's like a ribbed texture. You can hear my nail on it. So that's a filled in circle. Call it scratchy circle. And in the final part of understanding what shape is if you can give it to the child as just a raised outline and the centre is blank. So again, this is done, as was the other one, with the heat machine as well. So then that was how you would identify these shapes. These were actually all cut up to make into a book. Never quite got there. So that is your final stage of teaching shapes, just the outline done through Zychem heater. Okay, so like teaching shapes, the next one that I would do probably before I'm really ready to move on to Braille skills is what is this? I'm thinking, what on earth has she got now? This is just a pile of different materials because I'm now teaching long and short. So I've got some thin plastic, don't even know what it is, but thin plastic, almost string. It's not string though, but wire. So it's quite long. So you use the real, start off by using real objects, just like we did with the shape. So a long plastic string, and then we've got some pieces of wool. And again, we encourage a child to hold it at one end like this, and then take their hand, the other hand, and run their fingers down it. And that's long. So I make my long pieces really quite long. And then I've got a short piece of wool here. You can see how short that is, just about, I don't know, 5 or 6 centimetres, and I think my long one was about 5 or 6 times that length. And again, hold at the edge. Oh, short. Oh, short. So there we go. So I've got it in string, I had wool, and I've also got some thread here as well. A long piece of thread. So just different thicknesses as well, which are very good. You can see in my bag I've got a short piece of the plastic, and I've also got some lollipop sticks as well. So just different things there. Again, I put these all in a bowl, and I get the child, ask the child to sort all the long ones in one bowl and all the short pieces in another. So moving on from the real things, I'm a bit confused here because I've lost some of my cards. Clearly these are all long ones, but then I would go to sticking pieces of string onto cards. I phone because I only have long ones, don't know why, but my cards would all be the same length, size, even if I was only sticking a very short piece of string on, because you don't want to give a clue by the card, you want to give it by the strings. And I'm teaching this last because you can use these again actually for pre-braille and tracking along the string with the fingers. So again, starting here, make sure you can see, and then getting them to run their hands along and say it's long, and then doing the same with short ones as well. You'll notice on the card that here in the top right hand corner that the corner has been cut off, and that's because I'm now starting to work on asking the child to orientate things themselves. So when I give them the card, that they know which way is the top, and that slightly cut off corner is the top. It is quite difficult to do, and actually in some places they don't cut the corner off like that. What they do is they cut a little V shape in the top of the card, and that's actually easier to orientate for very young children rather than just cutting the corner off. That can be quite difficult, so you might want to think about that as well. Okay, so a few more things. You will have seen these pegs in on one of the PowerPoints that I did. Now these are called Slade pegs. Here's the red one, it's a cross. The yellow one is a flower shape, top of the peg. The blue one is a 5-pointed star. Throwing that one away. It's a black one, it's a square. And the white one is, they're still in the bag, but it's a circle. So these are great. They actually no longer make them. If you've got them in your service, that's great. If people don't know what they are, don't let them throw them out. They are hugely important. Make sure that you've got a pegboard that you can fit them into, but they're great for patterning. Patterning is so important as a pre-braille skill. So when you start off with pegs though, it's just worth saying you wouldn't start with Slade pegs, they're too small. You can get really quite large pegs, so you want to encourage parents to buy these as a Christmas present or a birthday present, or have them in your service. Really chunky ones that little hands can grip onto, and I idea of putting pegs into a pegboard. So always remembering to use two hands, hold the peg in one hand, encourage the child with their free hand to find the hole, and then bring the peg in their other hand to meet this finger who has actually sort of right by, if not probably in the hole, and then put the peg in. Again, a lot of hand over hand work needed to do that, but once the child is confident about doing that, that's great. To start off with, you allow them to put the peg in anywhere, it doesn't really matter, and then once they're confident at doing that, you then start using finding the row at the bottom and starting from the bottom left and working across, just as we read. So yes, slide pegs, very, very good. I have a colleague though who did use other ways of doing it when they hadn't heard of slide pegs in Canada where I worked. So but if you've got them in your service, they're really, really good. Please don't throw them out. As I say, they're no longer commercially available. Used to be sold by RNIB. Okay, so moving on. Now, I'm now looking at tracking cards. And before we can ever start tracking with Braille, we need to track with other things. So I've got a variety of cards here that I've made, and you will see what I've made them from and how I've set out. But I'm going to actually just go back before I go into tracking, because I realise I have left something out. So just going to bring this box across. So you're thinking, my goodness, fancy box, what's she got that for? Well, in my fancy box, the moral of these videos are never throw anything out. I have got another little bag, and I've got various little textures, little bits and pieces here that the child is all going to be familiar with. So put the lid on the bag. I've got some blue tack as well. And here's my foam circle. I've got a piece of blue tack on it, and I use this box then with all of these little different textures and bits, buttons, foil, things that child's going to be familiar with, tickly feather and so on. We start learning things like top, bottom, sides of the box. So we stick our things on. So I am revising what the textures are, the names of the texture, and I'm going to ask the child, where's the top of the box? What should we stick on the top of the box? When we do this foam circle, can you stick it on the top? There we go, there's the top. So what we do is we pretend that we're decorating a present, and then we can see how lovely it is at the end. Oh, we've got tickly feather. Where can we stick the tickly feather? Let's stick the tickly feather on the front of the box. So here's the front, and then we stick on our blue tack. So it's a great thing to do, because then you can take all these things off and start again the next day. And then you can also decorate the box and then ask the child to find, oh, where did I put a piece of tin foil here. Where did I put the nice crinkly tin foil? Where did that go? Where did I put, oh, where's the foam triangle? Where did that go? So you can stick all of these things on. So it becomes another way of reinforcing different textures, just a reminder of that, as well as position of things in relation to the box. So it's very important. I wanted to talk a little bit about tracking. These are really important exercises to do, and the child must be very competent at them before you move on to working with Braille itself. So here in front of us I have a card with a pipe cleaner on it. So something nice and thick like that is a good way to start, but you may even want something more than that. So I collect all sorts of bits and pieces, thick sort of string and cord as well, which you can glue onto card, and the child can track along these, and even some ribbon as well, which makes a nice thing to track along. So that's that. So as I say, I have my card here with my pipe cleaner on it, and the child would track along. And then we move from a pipe cleaner then on to a piece of string or wool. I'm sorry, it's white string against a white card, not very easy to see. And then next stage that we move on to, I put a gap. So the child is tracking along, and then, oh, do they notice that there's a gap, but they can keep moving along right into the end. Now, just a little word of caution when using pipe cleaners, the wire that goes through the middle does stick out a little bit, so you try and tuck it in so there's no damage done to fingers. Same again with gap in the middle with the string. And when we're doing cards like this, I always try and turn it into a story, because as an exercise on its own, it's fairly dull. So we talk about walking along the street and, oh my goodness, there's a hole in the road. And whose street might this be? All of those sorts of things. Can we name the street? So it's building up the child's vocabulary as well as doing the tracking exercise as well. This line here is actually made with hot glue. And again, there's a gap in the middle here. Again, not very easy to see. You'll notice that the line's not particularly even. That doesn't really matter. You just want the child to have good finger position and to stay on the line. From one gap, we then move on to two, and here we have our pipe cleaners again, and two holes in the road. Same again with string, then hot glue, and finally the last card I have here, it's a row of dots, not very straight unfortunately. Again, I want the child just to track along the dots using two hands, just the way the camera is positioned here. It's quite difficult to actually demonstrate that, but boom, there we go. Okay, so tracking along. And then always lightly back. So once they have mastered those cards, and that is going to take a varying amount of time depending on the child themselves, we can then move on to Braille. Now I have actually got quite old brown Braille paper here, but if you can get your hands on this, that's good. It's no longer made, unfortunately. Very difficult to see, but if I hold it up here, you'll see this is just a line of for full cell. So this is what we would start with. But brown paper is good because if you're a bit worried that the child's maybe not feeling the whole cell, if you get them to dip their fingertips in some talcum powder and then track along the Braille, the talc will leave a white mark on the cells, and you'll actually be able to tell if their fingertips are reaching the bottom parts of the cell. So 4 lines here of full cell, and you just be tracking along and watching for good hand position, elbows in, and fingers at 90 degrees to the Braille as well. So then from full cell, we would then move on to tracking along G, line of G on this card here. And then the next one, which I don't have, would be only one line, so using letter C's repeatedly and tracking along those as well. And then eventually we put in some different sign within that line so that see if the child can spot that. So anyway, that's just a little quick run through all about tracking.